Back here on HQ Spotlight, the Patriots-Broncos game had you likely riding a roller coaster of emotions when it came to the weather. That's a look at how it started and how it ended. And as for the outcome of the game, well, no doubt it's a tough one for Denver. Here's our Evan Washburn with Coach Sean Payton.
Well, Coach, first of all, we appreciate your time after a tough loss. What was the right message for the guys in that locker room?
Look, it's hard when you get to this game and I said, look, man, I can't tell you anything that's going to change how you feel right now. We're proud of them. Man, they played hard. Wasn't good enough today. Wasn't good enough by us, myself. This is probably one of the closer teams that I've coached, and you tell them you love them, and that's kind of about it.
You can feel how much this one's going to hurt for a little while for them. All right, Pete and Damien back with us, and it's never too early to look ahead. So for the Broncos now, we get to address their biggest offseason concerns as we try to move forward for them this season. And it's not the way that Bo Nix wanted this season to end. Of course, he has the fractured ankle. Pete, are you concerned about how that ankle is going to affect him beyond this?
Well, you have to be, because he's had problems with it in the past. And I know they say, okay, he's had the surgery, he's going to have 8 weeks, 12 weeks to get back onto the field, and that'll be fine if that's the timetable. But how's it impact him? Is it something that's going to be lingering? Is it something that could happen again? He's had issues. You go back to his college days, he had issues with the ankle as well. So there are concerns about that. I think he should be okay. You would hope to think he's going to be okay, but remember, mobility and moving around is a big part of who he is as a quarterback. So that, to me, is one of the biggest questions. It's just easy to say everybody has successful offseason surgery, and until we see him on the field, we don't know.
For me, the biggest question is going to be, is RJ Harvey the guy? And listen, I already know the answer to that. RJ Harvey is not the guy. He's a great back. I think he's a great complement to this offense. But if you play in Denver, which the Broncos do, and you want to make a deep playoff run, you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're going to need a big bell cow back that whenever you can't throw the football, you can just turn and hand it off. And even if it's only for 1 yard, even if it's only for 2 yards, just having the ability to do that. We saw it with the New England Patriots. Granted, Ramondre Stevenson, he wasn't carving up the defense, but when they handed him the ball, he was able to push the pile, gain 2 or 3 positive yards. They were able to stay ahead of the down and distance. But I felt like too much of the game yesterday for the Broncos rested on the shoulders of Jarrett Stidham, a guy who hadn't seen any action since 2023 because of their inability to run the football in the weather. So if the Denver Broncos want to be a team that consistently make a deep playoff run and want to get to the Super Bowl, and they want it to go through Denver, you're going to need a big workhorse back that can run in any kind of elements and just punish the defense over time and take the pressure off your quarterback.
Well, Pete, RJ Harvey took on a bigger role when J.K. Dobbins went down. Can he be that guy that Damien's talking about?
I tend to agree with Damien. I think it's a question. And you look at him, look, he's more of an airback type of guy. You get him out in space. I think he could be used more in the passing game. But can he get those tough physical yards in between the tackles on a consistent basis? He looked like at times he was tiptoeing a little bit on Sunday. Now, that could be something to do with the conditions as well. In those kind of conditions, you have to be able to run the ball. You want to power back. So I think that's something they'll look for going forward. I threw this out earlier. Travis Etienne is an unrestricted free agent in Jacksonville. So maybe they look at something like that. They do have salary cap room. They're going to have about $40 million. And remember, J.K. Dobbins was on their roster as well. He got hurt, and now he's an unrestricted free agent. So I think they do have to address the running back position. At some point, they need to get more physical there.
You mentioned RJ Harvey in that passing game. Let's just talk about the passing game as a whole. You had Courtland Sutton leading the way for Denver. He had 1,000 yards this season. Then you've got Troy Franklin behind him. Do you still feel like Denver's going to need to add a piece?
They need to get a #1 wide receiver. Look, Courtland Sutton's a nice player. I think he's a complimentary receiver. I don't think he's a true #1. When you talk about what the Patriots did on Sunday, they looked at those receivers and they said, you know what? They're not running by us. We're not scared of them running by us. And I think they played it that way. Now, when Franklin's on the field and he's healthy, he's usually a big play threat. He can run a little bit. But the rest of those guys, Mims, more of a gimmicky kind of guy. I think when you look at Sutton, you look at Pat Bryant, they're big physical receivers. They don't run that well. They need a #1 wide receiver to go with that #1 running back. If they can add that to their offense, I think it'll make it a lot easier on Bo Nix. It'll make it a lot easier on the play calling for Sean Payton, too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Pete. They need a true number one wide receiver. And Courtland Sutton, he's a great player, but he's not a wide receiver one. And I think the problem with Denver is they've got two big receivers that are big and physical, which you love to have. But to Pete's point, they don't run very well. And you can't really go, they're not go-to guys in the intermediate part of the field. Those are more jump ball, red zone, go up top and get it guys. And they're smaller guys like Mims. Those are more of the speedier, but they're more gadget plays. You got to throw them bubble screens. They're not like true possession type receivers like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, which clearly there aren't a lot of people like him. But the point is, they don't have a combination of somebody that can do both. Somebody who can be a big play element, but somebody who can also just move the chains on first down, second down, be a key go-to guy on third down. They're missing that consistency element of it because they're too one side or the other in terms of the position room right now. So they need to go out and get a true wide receiver one. And to Pete's point, they'll have the money to do it this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. The coaching carousel is still spinning. So let's just say, Damien, if the Steelers go ahead and hire Mike McCarthy, like there are a lot of reports out there saying they will, then there are 4 vacancies left. If the Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph decides to take one of those vacancies, who are you going to look to replace him?
Well, that's a good question. Hell, I wanted to ask Pete Prisco this, but just in terms of just putting it this way, I mean, when you talk about how good this defense was all season long, right? Yes, they've got studs all over the place, but Vance Joseph did a phenomenal job, whether it was games up front for the interior defensive linemen and the edge rushers to create those one-on-one matchups. We saw it yesterday in the New England game to avoid the chips on Nick Bonito and their edge rushers. They would walk a linebacker up and basically create one-on-one matchups because it took Ramondre Stevenson, the running back, out of the equation and took him out of the opportunity to chip those defensive ends. So, yes, they've got great players, but it's also been a great game plan in place for this Broncos defense all season long. And, Pete, I got to ask you, just because, I mean, these spots are starting to fill up fast, if Vance Joseph ends up taking a head coaching job, who do we see taking the DC job of the Denver Broncos?
That's a good question. I'm not sure who they would go in that direction. It's hard to replace Vance Joseph because Vance Joseph is so different in the way he calls a game. He's a different kind of guy. So I think, you look at some of the defensive coaches out there, are they going to be like Vance Joseph? You might have to change entirely what you do unless you like somebody on that staff, and I'm not sure anybody on that staff is ready to be elevated into that spot. I think Vance Joseph has a chance to be, get the Cardinals job. There's some talk that he might be in that running and maybe gets an opportunity to be the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. If that's the case, then they're losing one of the best defensive coordinators in this league, and a guy who really is, he does so many different things, and he gets creative with what he does. He blitzes a lot, he attacks, and I think when you lose a guy like that, it's hard to replace him.
Oh, yeah, it's some big shoes to fill, just like we have with you two, and that's why you guys are going to stay with us for some more hard-hitting questions about offseason and other teams. But, hey, this Patriots and Denver matchup, it has some history to it, and you can take a look. The latest result, of course, going in favor of the Patriots, but the Patriots also becoming the first road team to win a playoff meeting in this series that was heavily lopsided to the Broncos. All right, when we come back here, we mentioned those hard-hitting questions for the offseason. Let's focus on the Rams with Pete and Damien next. Back here on HQ Spotlight, and Matthew Stafford's performance yesterday was one for the books, completing 22 of 35 passes, 374 yards and 3 TDs, and no interception. He's still playing at a high level, but will he continue? That's what Coach Sean McVay was asked after the loss to Seattle.
Yeah, if he still wants to play, what the hell kind of question is that? The answer, yeah. You have to ask him. We've been totally present. I know that if he wants to, he's still playing at a pretty damn good clip. He's the MVP of the league, and if he's not, I got respect for everybody else, but this guy played at a level that's just different. I appreciate you guys this year. Thank you.
All right, that was quick. He appreciated the media this season. Back with Pete and Damien, and we're going to talk about the Rams' biggest questions for this offseason. Of course, we just heard from McVay, and we even heard from Stafford, post-game saying that it's too soon for him to even be talking about his future. Damien, what do you think he's going to decide to do? And also, what did you make of McVay's presser?
Oh, it was short, sweet, and to the point. He's advocating for his quarterback to be the MVP of the league, and It's for good reason. Listen, I agree. And I've been on the Drake May MVP stance for a very long time. And I don't know, Tiffany. I guess I just woke up one morning with some clarity. As much as I love Drake May, as great as he's played for New England this year, Matthew Stafford has been the best player in all of football. And he showed it in the playoffs time and time again. Do I think he would come back? Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to be the MVP of the season, and I don't see a world in which Matt Stafford retires after winning MVP and not making it to the Super Bowl with the chance just right in his hands. I don't see that happening. I think, to Sean McVay's point, he's playing at a high clip. You've got Devontae Adams, you've got Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams has been locked up contractually. I mean, there's a lot of good things going in LA. And granted, this season didn't end the way that they wanted to. I mean, they had a clear opportunity to get to the Super Bowl, maybe get Stafford another ring. But this was definitely a huge success for this team and for Matthew Stafford, a guy who wasn't participating in training camp. We didn't know what version of Matthew Stafford we were going to see this year. And he superseded all of our expectations by a hell of a lot. So I think he's going to come back. I think this relationship with him and McVay is too strong, on top of the fact that he's playing too good of football. And this offense is stacked. They're going to have the opportunity to reproduce the same offensive production they had this year, next year. So I don't see a world in which Matt Stafford walks away after this season.
Let's start with the question. I don't know how the question was asked. You couldn't really hear the question.
Yeah.
Was it asked, do you want him back, or is he coming back? Do you think he's coming back? We couldn't really hear the question. If the question is, do you want him back, the obvious answer is, of course I want him back. He's the MVP of the league this year. That's a bad question if it was asked that way. If it was asked, do you think he's coming back, and Sean responded that way, then it wasn't a good look for Sean. But the bottom line is, they want him back. But there are issues. Remember, this was a guy who opened the season with a major back injury, and there was some talk that maybe he would miss the season. Remember, we forget about that. Now, he played through it. He was clearly okay. It didn't impact him because he is the MVP. But I think the fact that you have to address that is certainly out there. And it just depends on how the question was asked. If you ask him, do you want him back? That's a stupid question. If you ask him, do you think he's coming back? Then you'd say, I'd like to think he is, but we don't know for sure.
See, and I think the question, if I remember correctly, was, do you think he's coming back?
Then Sean responded in the wrong way to that. Then.
See, and I disagree.
Well.
And even for, it's probably bad for me being a reporter and sometimes being in those press conferences, but isn't it too soon? Like,
no.
in that moment, you just lost one of the biggest
I don't
games
think that was
to
the
Super
first
Bowl.
I don't think that was the first question. It was a question that was asked through the process.
But I mean, just in general,
Yeah, I don't
asking
think so.
about this player's future, and then even asking him, I lean more on the side of, it's not the time. To me, it's not the time.
See, I think it is. I think you ask him, is this it for you? Are you coming back? Are you going to run it back? Are you going to consider?
But how many times does anyone ever answer that honestly?
Then he would say, okay, well, I think I'm going to regroup and go back and think about it for a little while, and then I'll make my decision. Or I'm coming back, or no, I'm not coming back. There's only 3 answers to that.
I know, but no one ever has said. Go ahead, Damien.
Let me just say this. 2 things can be absolutely true. And I think you're both right, because there's a saying, in the National Football League, you don't make decisions the day after the season ends, the 2 days after the season, not even a week after the season ends. You take ample amount of time to make a clear-headed decision that's not based off of emotion. So I definitely understand where Tiffany's coming from and saying it's too soon, because players, coaches, they all know now is not the time to even be thinking about those kind of things, because you're going to be thinking clearly with emotion but not with much intelligence. I also agree with Pete Prisco, because, Tiffany, these gentlemen have a job, and you know this as a reporter. It's to ask uncomfortable questions. It's to ask those tough questions after a loss or after a bad play. And it's not because these reporters or these people asking these questions want to paint a bad picture or just because they want to start these rumors, but because they've got kids at home that they need to feed. It's because they got a wife at home that they got to keep happy. They have a job to do. And to Pete's point about how McVay answered that question, that's where you've got to right all of the wrongs. If it was a question that was asked at the wrong time, if you didn't like the way it was presented, you still have to give a respectable answer, because at the end of the day, the person on the other side of that microphone is just simply trying to do their job. So I just want to say 2 things can be true, and I think both of you are right, because both of you are very smart and very knowledgeable on the topic at hand.
Well, you know what I always say, when coaches sometimes treat you like your job isn't important, that theirs is, then they're wrong about that. Because your job is just as important to you as their job is to him. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's not nearly as important to as many people, but to you it is. And therefore, when you ask the question, be cordial, answer the question. And I think Matt Stafford was asked similar questions, and he kind of was a little defensive about it as well.
I feel like he almost handled the best. I mean, he said he couldn't, sum up?
Reevaluate his season after, but again, just all you have to do is say, I'm going to think about it, make my decision in a couple months. This isn't, like Damien said, this isn't the moment for me to make my decision, but I clearly enjoyed this season. I'm leading to play next year. I would, believe me, if I gave a PR class to these guys, I would give them the exact advice. Make it go.
Listen,
make it go away.
Pete Prisco, PR.
Tiffany, we don't need no PR
yes,
classes.
You do.
It does.
No, we don't. No. But I will tell you, I'll tell both of you something, though. In terms of, this conversation about respecting the people on the other side or thinking your job may be more important or vice versa. Hell, I got my job with CBS because of that mentality of respecting people on the other side, of always answering those tough questions with thought, with being like, okay, listen, this just isn't the right time right now. I appreciate your question. Listen, respect goes a long way. Now, granted, does Sean McVay or Matthew Stafford, do they need to answer these questions to gain respect from the reporters? Absolutely not. But you do still have to do your due diligence of respecting people in their jobs because, hell, you never know when you're going to need to call on them people. So to Pete's point, I think McVay and Stafford could have answered it a little bit better. But again, to Tiffany's point, it's a sensitive time. They just saw an opportunity for a Super Bowl slip right through their hands.
And I agree with both of what you're saying. And I'm not saying I don't ask the hard-hitting questions, but I also will say this about McVay. I have interviewed him on a couple different occasions, and there's no one better, I think, with the media than McVay. He always remembers your name, remembers things about.
Oh, he remembers everything.
Yes.
And I love the way he handles things. And you're not going to agree with guys all the time. And there's going to be give and take. And if there's give and take, that's fine. But just move on from it. And I think Sean will move on from it. Matt Stafford will move on from it. I just think we sit here in the moment, and we say, well, what kind of question is that? That's kind of demeaning to the guy asking the question.
Yeah.
It's the question I asked you. I would like you to give me an answer. And if you don't want to give me an answer, then I'll understand.
And that's fair.
And by the way, it's a question that millions of people sitting at home want to ask.
They are, yes, you are wanting to know that question. Sometimes I grapple with, and I've had to ask them before too, but you just grapple with, hey, the human side of it and in the moment and the emotions. Hey, as we move on, let's get to the secondary. Pete, I know you have some thoughts on that. How can the Rams improve in that area?
Well, they have a lot of free agents in the secondary. That might not be a bad thing because those guys did not play very well down the stretch. And I think that's the reason we talk about the Rams and what happened to them down the stretch. They didn't play as well on defense in large part because the secondary wasn't as good. Quentin Lake went out midway through the season, came back in, and even he didn't play the way he played before he got hurt. I think across the board, they need to draft a cornerback. At some point, they haven't drafted a cornerback in a long time in the early rounds. I think they need to address that position maybe a couple times in this draft because their cornerback play wasn't as good. I think the safety play kind of had some problems as well. Cam Curl didn't play great in certain situations. Kitchens had some moments where he struggled. I think as a group, they need to get better in the secondary.
Then let's look at the offense then as a group. Is there any element to their game that's missing that could help enhance their play?
Speed. And Damien will attest this because we sit in the green room all year, and what do I say? Two things will be the undoing of the Rams. Lack of speed in the perimeter in the passing game. And they have great receivers, but they don't run that well. They don't scare you down the field. And the other one is poor secondary play. And as it played out, look, the receivers, they still didn't get the – Nakua is a great player, but he didn't run by you. He wins 50-50 balls. He's a great route runner. Devontae Adams, he's not a burner either. They need to get speed. The guy they thought might give them the speed this year, Tutu Atwell, never did. He's an unrestricted free agent. So at some point, if I'm the Rams, I need a go-to guy, a guy who can go down the field and catch the football.
Yeah, and they don't even have speed at the running back position. I mean, I love Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, but they're not fast guys. And if there's one thing that you fear, one thing that's not coachable, it's not teachable, it's there, it's not. One thing you fear as a defensive coordinator is speed. Guys on the outside that can run. Running backs who, if they get to the second level, they can hit their head on the goalpost and break those big explosive runs. But the Rams, they just don't have that. And where they get all their explosive plays are, Devontae Adams getting open down the field, catching the ball and then getting out of bounds. Or it's Puka Nacua going up and winning a 50-50 ball. Or he catches in the intermediate part of the field, and because he's such a big physical guy, he can run through a secondary and guys that, quite frankly, just don't like to tackle. But when you watch this LA Rams team play, Like, the explosiveness doesn't come from the speed. It doesn't scare you. It's almost like watching years and years of Penn State football tape. As good as they were, quarterback could be good, receivers could be good, but they just seem so slow. And it's like, when is somebody going to break the game or like get the ball and just take it the distance with that speed? Like, you fear the Rams because of the mind and the arm of Matthew Stafford, but you don't fear this Rams team because of the attributes, because of the speed and the ability to take the top off the defense. So I think they need to do it at the wide receiver position. Hell, I don't even think getting another gadget running back that can just, be a guy they can use on screens, use him on the perimeter, just add an element of speed that breaks angles and, makes people have to tackle in the secondary. That's what the Rams need.
Glad to see you guys agree on that. And we all can agree on a lot of things.
We do.
Today,
We do.
Right.
We're smart guys.
Pete and Damien, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. Hey, Sean McVay, he's been in this position before, and you can take a look there at what he's done in the NFC Championship game as the head coach of the Rams.